It is time for the royal appointment. Most weeks, the royal appointment newsletter from the Telegraph is amusing at best, insulting to its readers' intelligence at worst. But this week is particularly bad. I mean, so bad that there's not even a South Park joke. What is the world coming to? Before we dive into this bit by bit, because we're gonna need to. Just as a reminder, the point of the British media's close relationship with the British royal family is supposed to be, in theory, so that they can deliver pertinent information about the institution to the public. A free press is crucial to democracy, and it's crucial to have checks and balances on the ceremonial head of state. I think that thread's been lost. Let's get into the newsletter. Prince Harry and the Mothership of Online Trolling by Camilla Tominey. And I knew if Camilla Tominey mentioned online trolling, she was going to insert herself into this story. Don't worry, she does. Her opening paragraph is about the fact that about a decade ago, Prince Harry told a group of reporters, which included Camilla, that he regularly reads the online comments attached to articles. This is not a healthy decision. She fails to mention that during his press tour for the book Spare, Harry has said that he no longer reads the online comments because he realizes it's not healthy. Seems like a pretty easy thing to fact check and include as a reporter, but moving on. Next paragraph, quote, "The Prince Harry of yesteryear appeared to be able to distinguish between the work of the royal press pack and comments posted with impunity on the internet." Yes, she is implying that Prince Harry cannot tell the difference between online trolls and good journalism, to which I say, the line's been a bit blurred in the British media. I'm just going to be honest. Moving on, quote, "Accusing tabloids of being the mothership of online trolling, the father of two seems to be suggesting that trolls wouldn't exist if they didn't have newspaper stories to feed on." You're so close. Continuing, "Yet, as is ever the case, he neglects to take responsibility for his own role in fueling this frenzy." By existing? Because besides his press tour for his book, he don't talk to y'all. This is a doozy. She goes on to say, "While it is all too easy to blame the press for literally everything, trolls don't just react to the coverage of the royal family, but to the behavior of the royals that prompts the coverage in the first place." Behavior such as Meghan going back to her middle part, finally getting some good in-home lighting for a virtual conference in which she was introducing a friend that's being framed as a monarchy takedown. Are you kidding me? The behavior does not prompt the coverage, but the speculation y'all do sure feeds the trolls. But you're right. You should be covering the current working royals and the upcoming coronation, perhaps the cost of the coronation, things like that. That's what you should be focusing on. But you're not, because that's not what drives the profit. Your problem isn't with Harry and Meghan, and it shouldn't be. Your problem is media outlets prioritizing profit over good journalism. Be a part of the change. She then goes on to mention that she's been a victim of online trolling as well. What's interesting is for all the talk of Harry not realizing the role that he plays in fueling the online hate, Camilla also takes no responsibility for why people have reacted so strongly to her. Because while I do not condone death threats or anything like that, let's be clear, calling into question her sources and what she writes is totally fair. She's a journalist. And with a larger platform comes greater responsibility. Her biggest qualm is that they don't even bother to read the articles that are written. They're just seeing the headlines. She then goes on to question how Prince Harry can change the media landscape when he doesn't even read the newspapers on a regular basis. He does not need to. He has lived it. He has enough source material to understand that something is wrong. She then says, quote, "All he appears to be doing is trolling through clickbait." So you recognize that a lot of these headlines and social media posts linking you to articles are clickbait. And that's one of the reasons the headlines are so inflammatory, is because it will incense people and provoke an emotion and get them to share it without even reading it. Reading it is not the point, which again calls into question what good journalism is happening here. Her point here is that the courtiers like Sir Edward Young and Clive Alderton are not running the show, but they're simply taking orders from their bosses, which actually kind of makes this worse. But this is the real doozy.
The truth of the matter is none of the royals like the press, but they tolerate us because they recognize the need to harness the media to reach the people the monarchy needs to reach. Rather than going for all-out war, like hot-headed Harry, his words, not mine, they pick their battles because they are smart enough to understand the quid pro quo.
Quid pro quo? Quid pro quo? What she fails to mention is that the media's bottom line is to make a profit. So a lot of times the stories aren't conducive with giving the people an open channel to their monarchy. Also, if you're arguing that most people aren't reading the stories, does the monarchy really need you? Like, I feel like you're going a little too far with this one. She goes on to talk about how phone hacking was an aberration and that NGN has lost and paid the price. They paid, but have they truly lost? The last paragraph. She finishes up with this. What's truly mind-boggling is that Harry cannot seem to fathom that, by his own design, he has become the in repeatedly attacking his family, without giving them a right of reply. Harry has effectively become what he most despises, a troll feeding off negative headlines that are largely of his own making. I have some questions, because obviously I'm going to bring receipts. How is this? A poll commissioned by the Daily Mail. Proof of Harry feeding off negative headlines and just continuing to be the tabloid gift. Or this. Framed as rival parties, which it's not. The kid's gonna have a birthday party. It's fine. Or a basketball game in LA that they brought some of their staff to, which is only newsworthy because they are rarely seen in public. But we have seen even when they completely remove themselves from the public and the news cycles, y'all still find ways to write about them. This isn't inserting themselves into a conversation. This is making them the story. This is from your own coworker. But I bet it brings in the money. This framing is intentional. Y'all are pressed because a woman went back to her middle part and straight hair and put on some really good blush and highlighter. You're actually making two private citizens living in America your main tabloid fodder, which is weird, and that's on you. In some ways, this feels like the last gasps, the justification for a poorly behaved industry. But for all the talk about having to take personal responsibility, British media certainly aren't doing so. Again, if you think Harry and Meghan are all over the news, you are not wrong. But 90% of the time, it's not because they're putting themselves in the limelight. It's because they're profitable. Their name sells. Look at the stories, because the sources are almost always palace sources, insider sources, royal experts. This is an entire cottage industry. It's also why you rarely see new photos and you very rarely get quotes. Unless Harry is on his book tour, which ended, or is in court. But yet Camilla Tominey still finds a way to write about Prince Harry almost every week in the royal appointment. Which I thought was about working royals, but who am I?